What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock, which you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and show you guys what the charts are showing and what my price prediction is for Tesla for tomorrow. I'm going to break down what on earth is going on with the sentiment of the market, what earnings are showing, and some big announcements from the Fed and for Tesla that are very, very important for tomorrow and the future. Now, before I break anything down, though, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Don't take any of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. Not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 10 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, out of the 10 free stocks, 5 are going to come from the wheel right here. So you could win 5 free AMC shares, 5 free Tesla shares, or a mix of all of them. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 2 weeks. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So Tesla was actually down 0.84% for the day, a little bit right in the after hours. I'm essentially seeing something that I was talking about yesterday going on. So right now, when you look at the markets, right, the markets were very, very greedy a couple of days ago, right? You guys remember the market was just rallying. Things were looking very, very strong. And now the market is slowly going from greedy to neutral right now. And we're getting closer and closer to the fearful side. So I mentioned to you guys that I was looking at the channel that, the rising wedge that the SPY was essentially respecting. And in this channel, we saw some really, really nice moves, but now we're starting to show a lot of weakness as we broke past that 430 range. So now we have that very, very strong resistance, and we are showing some signs of chop. Now, the thing about that is, this isn't necessarily confirmed completely just yet. It is possible for the SPY to reverse a bit, maybe push up a little bit more before we get a big rejection, and it could actually catch us off guard. But I am actually a lot more in favor of the bears than the bulls for the next 4 weeks for the markets. I do think that the bears are going to come out of hibernation and really start pushing things down. But until then, there are some important things I have to discuss for the SPY and Tesla. And just to remind you guys, the SPY affects Tesla, the overall market will affect Tesla, and that's why it's very important to actually discuss these things. So when the SPY actually moved, we actually got, let me see if I can find it, we got this giant gap down today as this thing opened. And the thing about this gap is, I don't think it fully got filled just yet. So the gap could actually get filled at 429, which means the SPY might actually push up maybe tomorrow, maybe a little bit later, just a bit before we see another, chop and a lot more sideways action. So that's essentially what I'm seeing right now, just sideways action, lots of chop here and there. And I do think this is actually going to manifest itself into Tesla as well, as the market is very manipulated, and we do tend to see these things correlate as the market is moving. So for Tesla, what am I essentially seeing from this point? On the daily charts, if we just look at EMAs alone, you're noticing that so far we had that 1348 EMA crossover a couple of weeks ago. It's pushing up right now, but we're slowly starting to see this come down a bit. And right here, as Tesla's now kind of dropping a bit, we are still hovering above the 200 EMA, which is still a sign that we're holding up pretty darn well. But if we end up dropping below it, if we actually end up dropping to the low 800s, that would be one of the worst possible signs, and that would show the signs of Tesla starting to downtrend. But right now, we're not seeing it just yet, so I wouldn't turn extremely bearish just yet. And I really believe that Tesla's holding it pretty well, because the overall market did take a bit of a hit. Tesla was just down 0.8%. And if we actually look at the specific levels, let me actually pull up the 5-minute charts. Let me actually hide my indicators and show you guys what's going on with these particular levels. Because what you'll notice is that, yes, Tesla was in this channel for some time, but we actually got a break out of it. We ended up pushing right down below like this, and we are actually getting that nice bounce off 900. So Tesla actually bounced off 900. It pushed all the way up to about 925, a little bit higher than that before getting a nice rejection. So it is starting to make those lower lows. So this could be a sign that we may see Tesla come down again. And this is where the key support and resistance levels come in. So just to remind you guys, all right, if Tesla drops below 900, maybe tomorrow, maybe some other time, that would be a sign that this thing is going to actually come down to 880. That's the next key support zone. If we drop below that, that's where things could actually become concerning. But as of right now, if we actually stay between 900 and 880 at the lowest, at least for tomorrow, maybe for Friday, I would still be okay with Tesla, and I still think it could have the potential to see a nice reversal thanks to the split and the overall market. Now, just to remind you guys, if we get a push to the upside, Tesla has resistance around that 920 to 925 range, and past that, then we have 940. But you could argue that this may be the start of a downtrend from here. We could actually draw like a trend line here. I'm not going to do that real quick. I just want to keep this as simple as possible. Let me actually close this just to show you why this actually got a break to the downside. But right now, Tesla does look like it might actually start to trend in the downward direction. Just to show you this real quick, we could actually draw it like this. You could see just roughly this thing is starting to come down a little bit like this when it comes to its key support. So we could actually see it come as low as that 880 range if we see a break to the downside like that. Once again, it's not confirmed yet because the support around $900 is pretty strong for now. But if we get a break below that, then look out for that 880 level. And if we don't hold 880, that's where things could become very concerning. But for SPY right now, I'm not seeing that happen. I think SPY is holding up pretty well. Some buyers did step in to try to keep the thing up. So for now, for the week, I don't see Tesla just crashing like going forward. I do see this thing actually making some bearish moves, maybe going into next week. But because of the split, things could actually change. But it also depends on the market, right? That also plays a big role. Now, what I'm essentially seeing from the Fed, and this is why the market kind of responded in a negative way, was the FOMC minutes that came out. This is very important because right here, we noticed that the data that the Fed released was essentially the same as before. That wasn't the big deal. But the Fed did actually mention, all right, that they plan on continuing to raise the federal funds rate. And this is the thing, a lot of people thought the Fed could actually switch courses in September, which is just a couple of weeks away. It turns out that's not what they're doing. It looks more like they're keen on just continuing to be kind of not necessarily like super aggressive or hawkish, but continuing to be very stern and continue what they're doing, which is why the market may respond very negatively as we approach September, in my opinion. And that's what it's really looking like. When it comes to earnings, Target had their earnings, and we noticed something very interesting. They actually missed on it by a long shot. When it came to revenue, they met by 64 billion, but they actually sold off a lot of their unwanted inventory, and we saw a big hit in their earnings per share, 39 cents versus the 72-cent expectation. That's almost half of what they should have gotten, which is not good. And as a result of that, we're starting to see some signs that big retail stores, their profits are actually changing. Their EPSs are what typically get hit during recessions, but it's not as profound right now as it would be in a typical recession, right? But we're starting to see some signs of that in the retail side and a bit of a decrease in potential consumer sentiment for the markets. Now, is this necessarily the biggest one out there? Because Walmart came out with beating all expectations, other companies as well. We had pretty strong earnings. So as a result of this, the Fed, they're probably going to come out to be maybe even more hawkish than some people would want them to be, but not extremely aggressive because that's what Powell's nature tends to be. But other than that, I really believe that Tesla is going to trade in this channel. And for tomorrow, this is what I'm essentially seeing. So let me close this trend line for you and let me actually adjust this. Just give me 1 second. When we look at Tesla, I think it's holding up pretty darn well. So I'm not necessarily super bearish right now, but I want to see how it holds 900. That's the very key zone you got to look out for. Can this thing hold 900? If we get a break below 900, then we could start to see a lot of action in this range right here. And if that ends up happening, that's where things become serious, because if Tesla does not hold 880, things could get actually pretty bad from there. Not just for Tesla, but the whole market is what is being affected right now. And that's why Tesla's reacting in a way that we haven't seen for a while. So into open tomorrow, what I'm essentially seeing is I think the market might push up a bit. Tesla could push to about 925, get a rejection off that, and might start to trend down. This is what I think is going to happen. And what I think might happen is Tesla's going to come down like this, and it's going to try to test 900. And I'm not sure if it's going to hold 900. It might actually come below it. If it comes below it, if the market does take that hit, then we might actually get, a lot of downside from there. And maybe not like the worst downside ever, but some downside is possible. For now, I think it's very possible for this thing to maybe bounce off like 890. but I do think some buyers might step in because so far they are. And after that, we could get a nice push into the middle of the day, into like power hour. Tesla could actually push right back up to that 925 range like this. And I wouldn't be surprised if this thing gets rejected again, comes down, and we actually close a little bit green. So I am seeing a slight green close, maybe around like 917, 915. But for Friday, that's where things could be kind of like the opposite. Because if you look at data historically, Tesla tends to kind of like perform almost the same on Thursdays and Fridays. Historically, we could see that like 48% of the time they're green on Fridays, whereas it's like 47 or so percent on Thursdays. So that's just based off previous data. Things are changing a bit, and I do think that as time goes on, the market's going to become a little bit more fearful because this is the game that the big market makers, the big institutions, and the composite men out there, or the composite man, that's what they're playing. They're trying to play games with retail. And I do see some potential downside in the later weeks as we get closer to the next FOMC meeting. Now, when it comes to Tesla, I'm essentially predicting lots of sideways action between, I would say, you could say 880, maybe like 880 to 890, as high as maybe like 940 at the very highest. It's very hard for us to get there. So I would say like the 925 to 930 range. So between here and here, I see a lot of price action, but we could actually start to come down if the whole market does start taking a hit, which is very possible. In my honest opinion, I do see some room for upside for SPY. SPY could actually push to like 435, but I do think the room to the upside is very limited relative to the move to the downside. And I do see a rejection coming soon. I see lots of chop, and I do believe that the SPY is going to start coming down in the later weeks, and I do think that's going to affect the overall market. Now, the thing about Tesla is I'm not saying Tesla's just going to crash next week or anything like that, because we have the stock split coming out, and that could be a different catalyst. I am going to see how this thing reacts so far. As long as we hold above 880, I won't be too concerned. I still think this thing can make some nice price action, nice moves for next week. But other than that, I'm essentially seeing a lot more sideways action until we get closer to that date. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the options chain for Tesla. I'm not seeing it being too bad right now, so I don't expect a massive rug pull. It's pretty balanced between calls and puts. There just tend to be a lot more calls in the money than the amount of puts in the money. But other than that, Max Payne's at 870. Tesla tends to close a little bit above this. So I do think we're going to close above it. So I don't think it's going to be too bad. And I just really hope this thing closes and holds above 880. That's really the key zone. Other than that, there's a big piece of news that came out, and there's a big heat wave in China that's closing major factories that are supplying parts to Tesla, Intel, Toyota, and bigger companies like that. And this is going to be very important because of the fact that this heat wave actually came out at about 104 degrees. It's very tough for them, and they depend on different resources to really power these big factories. So as a result of this, what's essentially happening is the hydropower to power these factories is going to be in a position where it's shut down, and this may actually limit some of Tesla's production to some degree. Do I think it's going to be super serious? Not necessarily. And even if it does slow them down, I still think they have the capabilities and capacities to really ramp up things even later on, going into like the later half of this quarter and maybe into next quarter to really make up for it. So it's not necessarily something that concerns me too much, but it is something you should know because this could have an effect on them slightly. With that said and done, I mean, Tesla is still doing very well for the long term. Give the thing the time it needs. And with that out of the way, I'll most definitely see you guys in the next video. Tesla to the moon because the long term future is bright, and peace out.